Yeah, so next up, I want to talk about Black Ops 6, which is the newest installment of Call of Duty and came out recently. And I've been playing a little bit of it, and I want to tell you what I think. So, I'm a long-time Call of Duty fan, and Black Ops in particular, the first Black Ops, I think, is one of my favorite games of all time, possibly one of the best games of all time. So even though the franchise has faltered a little bit in recent years with the Black Ops subgenre or sub franchise of the Call of Duty series, I was very excited to see what they had to offer. Black Ops 6 takes place in the 1990s, and it follows some intelligence agents that go rogue to stop an international paramilitary group that is targeting the U.S. So, in typical Black Ops franchise, it's kind of the secretive kind of espionage type of stuff that was going on during the Cold War. This game takes place shortly after the Cold War, but they're still dealing with the residuals of that. And I haven't finished the campaign, but I have to say what I've played so far is very fun. I think the story is a bit lacking so far in comparison to previous games, but the missions are very fun. I've been having a lot of fun with sniping, and the most recent mission I played takes place during the Gulf War, and even though it's a linear storyline game, individual missions are treated like they're open world. So this one was fun because it basically gave you a map, and you had multiple, like many objectives that you could choose to do. There were optional objectives, and then there were required objectives. And if you did the optional objectives, it made your time a little bit easier with the required one. So I thought that was really fun. And multiplayer, multiplayer, which is what Call of Duty is really known for, is pretty good so far. They introduced a new movement system where you can basically move like you're a 1980s action star. You can dive backwards and land on your back. You can strafe side to side. There's a lot more options of what you can do while you're sprinting. Peeking around corners when you aim close to a wall happens automatically now. So it's really changed the gameplay fundamentally. And it can be annoying sometimes when somebody jumps off of a staircase over your head and lands on their back to shoot you in the back. But at the same time, it's pretty cool. And if you figure out how to execute those moves, you're going to have a lot of fun.
Well, and Ben, we know that these games are fun, but they're also, they tend to be quite topical. It hasn't been uncommon in the past for us to see them make quite strong political messages within these games. So, what do you think that this game is telling us about where, particularly video game culture, is going and where they're at right now?
Yeah, so I don't know that I'd say the Call of Duty franchise is particularly conservative overall, but something that was interesting in the last installment was that trailers for the game featured interviews from an ex-KGB agent in the 1980s talking about how the communist regime was trying to infiltrate the United States in areas like the education system and demoralize the populace to destabilize the country. And the fact that things like that were being included in the trailer for a video game from Activision was really surprising.
So this is no longer Super Mario Bros. Where you jump over a toad.
No,
these are really pretty. For maybe people in our audience who haven't played video games in quite as long, these are very serious sort of political spy, espionage kind of games now.
yes, but that brings me to one of my main observations about this game. It's not as extreme in this game as others, but Call of Duty over time has started to water down the severity of their content, not in terms of violence, but in terms of tone. So I remember the first installment actually in what became the Black Ops franchise was a game called World at War. And it was set in World War II, and it was extremely dark and gritty. And it was very grim. It was kind of operatic. It was kind of apocalyptic in its representation of World War II. And that drew some criticism at the time because, people were like, this is a video game. Why is it like so oppressively dark? But I actually think that's a more conservative way to make a game like this because it's more accurately representing what war is. And I can tell you, I I really thought about things and I really felt feelings about, what's the nature of war when I played World at War. And I haven't been getting that so much from Call of Duty recently. For example, in the multiplayer component of Black Ops 6, at the end of the match, they have a winner's circle with the top 3 players kind of standing there with their stats listed. And everybody gets like a crazy costume. Like, you could be a shark. And you could do like a little victory dance, or like you could floss on your ops, and it's like this is really kind of, I think, creating the kind of discordant problem in the messaging that people were pointing to in World at War. I think it's actually more of a problem now when we're kind of trivializing war by making it all about having like a unique identity that's associated with the war elements of the game.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that they've sort of become a little bit closer to like the Mission Impossible movies. It feels like where they are these big set pieces and it's action, but it's a popcorn piece, right? It's not
Yeah.
it's not so much a thinking movie, right, or a game rather.
Yeah, that's very true. So I haven't finished the campaign yet. I'm hoping that as the campaign progresses, they will kind of introduce some of those typical Black Ops plot twists and darker elements that might add a little bit more substance to the story and messaging of the game. But one other topic I wanted to touch on before we move on is the portrayal of women in combat in these Call of Duty games and, first person shooters generally. There's been a big push in the games industry recently to have more representation, but one of the effects of that is that games are very deliberately placing women in combat roles in these games. And as a conservative and a Christian, this is very troubling to me because the intended goal is to empower and elevate women, but the result is I'm playing a video game and I'm shooting potential mothers in a multiplayer match. And that doesn't sit well with me. What do you think about that, Tyler?
Well, Ben, I think to use your own words, you can be a shark, So, so I don't know that we should be taking this quite as seriously as, a message to the future mothers of America that, hey, you too can, hit the gritty in a military uniform, right? Like, I think that there is an element of, these games, that is particularly arcadey in style, particularly the multiplayer. And like you said, the game doesn't take itself seriously. And so I don't know why we should take its message seriously, particularly in things outside of the campaign, where it is more kind of about entertainment for the sake of entertainment and, go dress up as somebody, who's a giant Lego and jump off a building, right? Like, this is very absurdist kind of stuff.
Fair enough. And to the game's credit, in the campaign, although they do take a deliberate effort to represent women in the military, it seems to be done in a more historically accurate way. You see women in kind of higher up positions, but you don't see like female Iraqi foot soldiers. I believe that happened in a couple previous Call of Duty games, which felt a little bit strange. But this one doesn't seem to be doing that, so I appreciate the fact that they're at least trying to be grounded in the story parts of the game.